everyone, this is Mrs. Snowbeck. Today we are going to cover Unit 6, Lesson 1. Part of this lesson will be a review. We're going to review the Pythagorean theorem, and then we're going to talk about one other piece that goes with it. So do you remember if you have a right triangle, like this picture over here, where there's one corner that's 90 degrees, that's a right triangle. Do you remember what the Pythagorean theorem is? Well, if you're kind of thinking it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared, you're right. And what we use it for is if we know two of the side lengths, then we can find the third side length by using this theorem. So let's just jump down right to number 1, and you might remember how to do this. Why don't you take a second and see if you can set up the equation for number 1. Pause the video and write the equation. It should be 6 squared plus 15 squared equals x squared. Because remember, the a and the b are the two legs, and the c is always across from the 90-degree side. It's called the hypotenuse. So in this case, the x is our c. So you can put a c or an x. I'm just going to use x because that's what the triangle has on it. 6 squared, if you type that into your calculator, it's like 6 times 6 is 36. 15 squared is 225 equals x squared. Add those two numbers together, you get 261 equals x squared. But then remember, you have to undo the square, and to undo the square, you do the square root. So remember to take the square root on your calculator. You're probably going to have to hit second, that little second or shift button, and then x squared, because right above the x squared key there should be a little square root button. So take the square root of 261, and if you did it correctly, it should be 16.16 equals x. I rounded it off a little bit. So practice that and see if you're getting the same answer that I got. All right, on your own, try number 2. So pause the video and then unpause it when you're done. (17 squared plus 7 squared equals x squared). Again, across from the 90 is your x, so that has to go in that C spot. 17 squared is 289, 7 squared is 49. Add those together. 289 plus 49 is 338. Now to undo the square, you have to take the square root. And the square root of 338 is approximately 18.38. Again, pause the video, try number 3. Should be x squared plus 9 squared equals 11 squared. Make sure you have 11 in the C spot, because that is the hypotenuse. That's the one that's across from the 90. So we're going to have x squared plus 81 equals 121. Minus your 81, x squared equals 40, and then square root, and the square root of 40 is approximately 6.32. Number 4, Jake is locked out of his house with the only open window on the second floor, 12 feet above the ground. He needs to borrow a ladder from his neighbor. If he must place the ladder 5 feet from the house to avoid some bushes or some shrubs, what length of ladder does Jake need? So imagine, like, maybe your mother has a beautiful rose bush right in here, a hydrangea bush or something, and you can't mess that up. So your ladder has to be long enough to go over that. Well, take a look there. We have a triangle. I'll outline it in red, and it looks like we can use the Pythagorean theorem. So 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. The c would be the longest side, which in this case would be the ladder. So 25 plus 144 equals c squared. Again, you should use the squared button on your calculator. Type in 5 squared if you need to, and 12 squared to get those. Add them together. You get 169 equals c squared, and then you have to take square root, square root. When you take the square root, you probably have to hit second and then that x squared button. 13 equals C. Or in other words, the ladder has to be 13 feet. So most of that should have seemed sort of familiar to you. We've done that stuff before. But now we're going to move on to something that's a little new. So remember, if you have a squared plus b squared and it equals c squared, then the triangle is going to be a right triangle. ABC will be a right triangle. But what happens if you have 3 side lengths in a triangle and a squared plus b squared does not equal c squared? Like for instance right here, the c squared is less than the a squared plus b squared. Well, when the c squared is less, you will get an acute triangle, which means all angles are smaller than 90 degrees. When you do a squared plus b squared and the c squared is greater than the a squared plus b squared, then you'll get an obtuse triangle. And remember, obtuse triangle means you have one angle that's greater than 90, one big angle. Let's do an example. Number 5. Determine whether each set of numbers can be the measures of the sides of a triangle, and if so, classify the triangle as acute, right, or obtuse. Okay, there's going to be 2 steps to this. Step 1 is we have to figure out, can these lengths even make a triangle? And here's how you do it. You add the 2 short sides, and they have to be greater than the third side. So we're going to do 7 plus 14, which is 21. The 2 smaller sides are the 7 and the 14. Added together, it's 21. 21 is more than 16, so yes, we can make a triangle. Now step 2 is we have to figure out what kind of triangle. So now we basically do the Pythagorean theorem. Okay? And so we're going to do a squared plus b squared, and we're going to see how does it compare to the c squared. Your a and your b have to be your small sides, so 7 squared plus 14 squared. Your c squared is your longest side, so 16 squared. Now simplify. 49 plus 196, and then on the other side, 16 squared is going to be 256. I have those memorized, but if you need to, just use your calculator and type in 16 squared. Add these together, you get 245. It is not equal to c squared, so it's not going to be a right triangle. In this case, the c squared is larger than the a squared plus b squared. If the c squared is larger, you will have an obtuse triangle. Let's try another one. Let's try part B. So part B, we're going to try to figure out if 9, 40, and 41 can be the lengths of the sides of a triangle, and then if so, what kind of triangle will it be? So first, remember you add your 2 short sides. So a 9 plus 40 is 49. If that is greater than your third number, then it works. Well, 49 is greater than 41, so yes, we can make a triangle. Now we do Pythagorean theorem. We do 9 squared plus 40 squared, and we see, how does that compare to 41 squared? Well, 81 plus 1600, and 41 squared, I had to type this into my calculator, it is 1681. If I add these 2 on the left, I also get 1681. Ah, they're equal. When that happens, guess what kind of triangle we have? When a squared plus b squared actually equals the c squared, we have a right triangle. All right, so let's try this last one. The last one, we have the numbers 1, 7, and 8. So we have to check, can we even make a triangle? Well, 1 plus 7 equals 8. Is 8 greater than 8? No, they're not. One is not greater than the other, or the 2 small sides added together is not greater than the third side. So guess what? We can't even make a triangle. Let me explain why. Imagine you have a segment that's like 8 meters. And then you have one that's 1 meter and one that's 7 meters. As you lower those down, imagine them getting lowered like this way, lowering down. They're going to have to go all the way flat to touch. Like 8 meters this way, 1 here, 7 here. They're not going to touch till they're totally flat, and it won't make a triangle. Kind of interesting. That wraps up Unit 6, Lesson 1. So now will you guys please try the practice? If you get stuck, let us know. Send us a Schoology message. Otherwise, good luck, and then drop it in Schoology when you're done.